Commander Vextal stood on the observation deck of his hunting vessel, gazing down at the blue-green planet below with the same excitement a child might feel looking at a new toy. His elongated, reptilian features twisted into what passed for a smile among the Kethnari, but revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth that had evolved for tearing flesh from still living prey. "Ah, Earth," he said, his voice carrying that particular blend of arrogance and anticipation that comes from being at the top of the food chain for far too long. The third planet in this pathetic little system, home to humans, the galaxy's most overrated species. Scout Zimra, nervous energy radiating from her smaller frame, bounced on her clawed feet. "Commander, the preliminary scans show they haven't even achieved faster-than-light travel. Some of them still use projectile weapons that rely on chemical propulsion." "Chemical propulsion, sir. How delightfully primitive." Tracker Gruul Nok, the self-proclaimed expert on human behavior, consulted his data pad with the confidence of someone who had never been wrong about anything in his life. Which, to be fair, was exactly the case. According to my research, humans are pack animals, but they lack the coordination of true predators. They're emotional, irrational, and completely dependent on their technology. Strip away their tools, and they're just hairless apes stumbling around in the dark. Vextal's laugh echoed through the ship's corridors. 12 star systems, gentlemen. 12 different species we've successfully hunted to near extinction. The Vorthan warriors with their energy shields, the crystalline collective with their hive mind. Even the nightmare wraiths from the Void Nebula. All of them fell before our superior intellect and technology. The ship's AI announced their arrival at the designated hunting preserve, a remote island chain in what the humans called the Pacific Ocean. Perfect isolation, abundant resources, and absolutely no chance of outside interference. The Kethnari had done this dance so many times they could choreograph it in their sleep. "Begin specimen collection," Vextal ordered, settling into his command chair. "I want a variety pack. Military types for the challenge, civilians for the sport, and perhaps a few of their intellectuals for the irony." Within hours, their hunting drones had silently abducted 4 humans from various locations across the globe. The advanced cloaking technology and neural dampeners made the process laughably easy. No muss, no fuss, no evidence left behind. The first captive they released was Jake Martinez, a former Marine turned park ranger from Colorado. Tall, lean, with the kind of weathered face that suggested he'd seen more than his share of trouble. Gruul Nok had specifically requested him after analyzing his military records. "This one served in multiple combat zones," Gruul Nok explained as they watched Jake stumble awake on the beach through their surveillance drones. "He should provide at least 30 minutes of entertainment before the inevitable breakdown and pleading for mercy." Vextal activated his personal hunting gear, the familiar weight of his energy rifle reassuring in his clawed hands. 30 minutes. I give him 10 before he's sobbing for his mother. They watched Jake sit up, shake his head clear, and slowly survey his surroundings. Any moment now, the panic would set in. Any moment now, he'd start running blindly through the jungle, making himself an easy target for their sport. Any moment now. Jake Martinez stood up, brushed sand from his clothes, and did something completely unexpected. He smiled. "Well," he said to absolutely no one, "this is new." Vextal leaned forward in his chair, confused. Is he experiencing some kind of mental breakdown? Where's the terror? The desperate scrambling for escape? Jake was now walking the perimeter of the beach, occasionally stopping to examine the sand, the vegetation, and the unusual scorch marks left by the alien transport. He picked up a handful of sand, let it filter through his fingers, and nodded as if confirming something. "High iron content in the sand," Jake muttered, apparently having a conversation with himself. "No native footprints except for small mammals. Transport marks suggest vertical landing and takeoff. Either I've been kidnapped by people with really advanced helicopters, or we're officially in X-Files territory." Gruul Nok's confidence wavered slightly. This is not typical prey behavior. He should be running by now. Maybe he's too stupid to realize he's in danger, Zim-Ra suggested hopefully. That's when Jake found the surveillance drone. It was well hidden, cloaked, and supposedly undetectable by primitive human technology. Jake walked right up to it, waved, and said, "Hey there, little guy. I'm guessing you're not from around here." The three aliens stared at their screens in stunned silence. "How did he?" Vextal began. "The cloaking device is functioning perfectly," Zim-Ra confirmed, checking her instruments frantically. "He shouldn't be able to see it." Jake was now examining the drone with the casual interest of someone who'd found a particularly interesting bug. Interesting design. Definitely not human engineering. The power signature is all wrong for anything we've got, and that's some seriously advanced material science. He looked directly into the camera. "So, are we doing this the easy way or the hard way?" Before anyone could respond, Jake grabbed the drone and, with a move that suggested extensive training in mechanical disassembly, proceeded to take it apart with his bare hands and a sharp rock. "Okay," Vextal said, his voice climbing an octave. "Deploy the other specimens. Maybe he's an anomaly." Dr. Emily Watson, wilderness survival expert and author of 3 books on surviving in hostile environments, woke up in a similar clearing about a mile away. Unlike Jake, she immediately began what could only be described as a systematic analysis of her situation. Unconscious for approximately 6 hours based on circadian rhythm disruption, she announced to her invisible audience, transported by unknown means to an island environment, probably Pacific based on the vegetation and climate. No obvious injuries, which suggests my captors want me alive and mobile. She paused, looked around, and added, "Also, I'm being watched. Hi there, kidnappers. Nice drone work, but you might want to work on your thermal shielding. The heat signature is visible if you know what to look for." Marcus Tank Thompson, ex-Special Forces and current security consultant, had a more direct approach. He woke up, assessed his situation in about 30 seconds, and immediately began setting traps. Woodland environment, check. No obvious escape routes, check. Hostile surveillance, check. Unknown enemy capabilities, check. He looked up at the sky. "Well, boys, looks like we're playing for keeps." Lisa Park, MIT-educated engineer and weekend survival enthusiast, took yet another approach. She woke up, found the nearest surveillance drone, and began talking to it like it was a colleague. "Okay, let's establish some ground rules here. First, I'm assuming you speak English, or at least have translation software. Second, I'm not particularly scared of you, more curious than anything. Third, I'm going to assume this isn't a government operation because, frankly, our government isn't this creative." She sat down cross-legged and continued, "So here's what I think is happening. You're probably not from Earth, which means you've got technology I'd love to get my hands on. You've kidnapped us for reasons I can't fathom yet. But I'm guessing it's not for our sparkling personalities. And you're probably watching this with a mixture of confusion and growing concern." Meanwhile, back on the ship, the 3 aliens were experiencing something they'd never encountered in 12 previous hunts. Their prey was adapting faster than they could react. "Sir," Zim-Ra reported, her voice shaking slightly, "the human-designated Marcus has constructed 17 separate traps in the past 2 hours. Our ground reconnaissance drones are, well, they're not doing well." Gruel Nock was furiously consulting his data on human behavior. "This makes no sense. Humans are supposed to be emotional, irrational creatures. They should be panicking, not engineering countermeasures." That's when Scout Zim-Ra made her first fatal mistake. She volunteered to personally investigate the human-designated Jake, confident that her superior speed and reflexes would make her untouchable. She found Jake waiting for her. "You know," he said conversationally, "I've been thinking about your technology. Really impressive stuff. The cloaking, the silent running, the advanced materials. But here's the thing about advanced technology. Zim-Ra raised her energy weapon, but Jake was already moving. It always has a weakness. The snare that caught Zim-Ra around the ankle was constructed entirely of local materials, but it was positioned with the precision of someone who understood physics, engineering, and the behavioral patterns of overconfident predators. As Zim-Ra hung upside down from a tree, Jake continued his lecture. See, you've been hunting species that evolved to be prey. But humans? We didn't evolve to be prey. We evolved to be the thing that everything else was afraid of. He looked up at her with a grin that would have made his ancestors proud. Welcome to Earth. Population, one apex predator species, and you just declared war on all of us. The humans had been on the island for 6 hours when they found each other. It wasn't luck, coincidence, or accident. It was the result of 4 highly trained individuals systematically working to understand their situation and locate potential allies. Jake had used his military experience to identify the most defensible positions on the island. Dr. Watson had analyzed the ecosystem to determine the most likely locations for human habitation. Marcus had created a network of signals using reflected sunlight and arranged rocks. Lisa had reverse-engineered parts of a captured drone to create a makeshift communication device. When they met at the island's central water source, the aliens watching through their remaining surveillance equipment experienced something they'd never felt before: the growing realization that they might be in serious trouble. So, Jake said, settling down on a fallen log, anyone else get the impression our kidnappers aren't quite as smart as they think they are? Dr. Watson was examining what remained of Zim-Ra's equipment. Based on the materials and energy signatures, I'd say we're dealing with a species that's technologically advanced but tactically inexperienced. They've got great toys, but they don't know how to use them effectively. Marcus had been quiet, but now he spoke up. I've been watching their patrol patterns. They're predictable, repetitive, and they don't adapt to changing conditions. Classic signs of a force that's never faced real opposition. Lisa held up a small device she'd cobbled together from drone parts. I've been monitoring their communications. They're panicking. Whatever they expected to happen here, this isn't it. Back on the ship, Commander Vextal was learning the hard way that pride comes before the fall, and he was about to experience both. Report, he demanded, his voice carrying less authority than it had 6 hours ago. Scout Zim-Ra is captured, sir. The humans have successfully disabled 70% of our surveillance network, and they appear to be coordinating their activities, Gruel-Nok reported, his earlier confidence completely gone. Coordinating? They're supposed to be running in circles, screaming for help. Yes, sir. That's what they're supposed to be doing. Vextal activated his personal communicator. Zim-Ra, report your status. Jake's voice came through the channel instead. Hi there, Commander. Jake Martinez, United States Marine Corps, retired. I believe you have something that belongs to us. The bridge fell silent. You see, Jake continued, Scout Zim-Ra here has been very helpful in explaining your whole operation. Hunting preserve, superior alien technology, humans as primitive prey. It's a fascinating concept, really. Vextal found his voice. You will release my subordinate immediately, or face the consequences. Oh, I don't think you understand the situation here, Commander. You see, you made one critical error in your research. And what's that? You assumed we were the prey. Dr. Watson's voice joined the conversation. From a biological standpoint, your species shows all the hallmarks of an apex predator that's never faced serious competition. Overconfidence, predictable behavior patterns, and a complete lack of adaptive response to changing circumstances. Marcus added his commentary. From a tactical standpoint, your operations are amateur hour. No redundancy, no flexibility, and no understanding of asymmetric warfare. Lisa finished the analysis. From a technological standpoint, your equipment is impressive but poorly implemented. Too much reliance on automation, insufficient hardening against countermeasures, and frankly, some pretty glaring security vulnerabilities. Vextal's claws clenched around his communicator. You cannot possibly hope to match our superior technology. Actually, Jake said, and they could hear the smile in his voice, we already have. That's when the ship's alarms began blaring. Sir, Grulnok reported, his voice barely above a whisper, they've accessed our main computer systems. How is that possible? The human-designated Lisa has apparently reprogrammed our own surveillance network. Our drones are now working for them. Through the ship's viewports, they could see their own hunting drones patrolling the island, but now they were protecting the humans instead of hunting them. Dr. Watson's voice came through the communicator again. Oh, and Commander? You might want to check your life support systems. I've been studying your biology through Scout Zim-Ra's equipment, and I've made some interesting discoveries about your species' respiratory requirements. The ship's atmospheric processors suddenly shifted, and the three aliens began experiencing something they'd never felt before. The fear of being hunted by something smarter, more adaptable, and considerably more dangerous than they were. You see, Jake said, his voice now carrying the cold authority of someone who'd turned the tables completely, we've been apex predators for about 2 million years. We didn't get to the top of the food chain by being nice. The interrogation of Scout Zim-Ra had been surprisingly informative. Not because the aliens had been particularly cooperative, but because humans had developed very effective methods of extracting information from unwilling subjects over the course of several millennia of warfare. So let me get this straight, Dr. Watson said, looking up from her notes. Your species has been doing this for how long? Zim-Ra, hanging upside down from Jake's expertly constructed snare, glared at her captors with what she probably thought was intimidating defiance. The Kethnari have been the galaxy's premier hunters for over 3,000 years. We have brought down entire civilizations. 3,000 years, Marcus repeated thoughtfully. And in all that time, you've never encountered a species that fought back effectively? None were worthy of the name predator, Zim-Ra spat. The Vorthan warriors were all shield and no strategy. The Crystalline collective shared a hive mind but had no individual initiative. The nightmare wraiths were terrifying but predictable. Lisa looked up from the alien communication device she'd been modifying. So you've been hunting prey species for 3 millennia, and you never learned how to fight actual predators. That's actually kind of sad. Jake was cleaning his improvised weapons with the methodical precision of someone who'd done this many times before. It explains a lot about their tactics. They're used to hunting animals that run away, not animals that fight back. Oh, we're not animals, Dr. Watson corrected. We're something much worse. We're intelligent apex predators with opposable thumbs and severe trust issues. Meanwhile, on the ship, Commander Vextal was discovering that commanding a hunting expedition was very different from fighting a war. Sir, Grulnok reported, they've reprogrammed 18 of our hunting drones. The drones are now actively hunting us. How is that possible? Those drones have the most advanced AI systems in the galaxy. Yes, sir. But the human-designated Lisa appears to have a better understanding of artificial intelligence than our engineers do. Vextal looked at the tactical display, where red dots representing their own drones were systematically eliminating his remaining surveillance network. What about our personal equipment? Our energy weapons? Our superior technology? Well, sir, the human-designated Marcus has been leaving gifts for us. Gifts. Grulnok activated the external camera feed. Scattered around the ship's landing zone were various pieces of Kethnari technology, arranged in neat piles. Energy weapons, reconnaissance equipment, even pieces of their personal armor. He's been collecting our equipment? Vextal asked. No, sir. He's been returning it. After he's finished studying it. The implication hit Vex Tau like a physical blow. He's reverse engineering our technology. It gets worse, sir. The human-designated Jake has been leaving messages. Messages? In day. Carved into trees near our equipment drops. Things like "Thanks for the toys and your weapons are cute, and is this really the best you can do?" Vex Tau felt something he'd never experienced before: doubt. Not just about the hunt, but about everything his species had believed about themselves. "Sir," Gruel continued, "I've been analyzing the humans' behavior patterns, and I think I may have made an error in my initial assessment." "What kind of error?" "It's a fundamental one. I assumed they were prey because they hadn't achieved interstellar travel. But sir, they've been fighting each other for their entire evolutionary history. They've developed warfare into an art form." Vex Tau pulled up the data on human military history. What he saw there made his blood run cold. Chemical weapons, biological warfare, nuclear armaments, and tactical innovations that demonstrated a level of creative violence that his species had never imagined. "They've been fighting wars for sport," he whispered. "Yes, sir, and sir, they've been getting very, very good at it." That's when the ship's hull began to vibrate with a rhythmic pounding. "What is that?" Vex Tau demanded. "The humans, sir. They're knocking." Through the ship's external cameras, they could see Jake standing at the main airlock, holding what appeared to be a shaped charge made from their own explosive devices. "Commander," Jake's voice came through the communication system, "we need to talk." "This is impossible. How did they reach the ship?" "They climbed, sir. Apparently humans are excellent climbers." Jake's voice continued now, "You have two choices. You can open this door and we can discuss the terms of your surrender like civilized beings, or I can open this door for you and we can discuss the terms of your surrender like the primitive savages you seem to think we are." Vex Tau looked at his remaining crew. Gruel was staring at his datapad in horror. The ship's AI was reporting multiple system failures as the humans continued their systematic takeover of Keth Nari technology. "Your choice, Commander. But I should probably mention that Dr. Watson has been studying your species' biology, and she's developed some very interesting theories about your weaknesses." Through the ship's internal sensors, they could detect a strange chemical signature beginning to permeate the atmosphere. "Oh, and Lisa wanted me to tell you that she solved the problem of your ship's security protocols. Apparently your encryption is only advanced by our standards. By galactic standards, it's kind of embarrassing." The ship's lights began flickering as Lisa's reprogramming took effect. "So," Jake said, his voice now carrying the unmistakable authority of someone who held all the cards, "shall we discuss terms?" The assault began at 03:00 hours because humans had learned long ago that the best time to attack your enemies is when they're trying to sleep. Jake had spent the previous day teaching his new team the finer points of asymmetric warfare, and he'd been pleased to discover that his students were quick learners. "Remember," he'd told them, "we're not trying to match their technology. We're trying to make their technology irrelevant." Dr. Watson had used her knowledge of alien biology to create a chemical compound that would disorient the Keth Nari without killing them. "I'm a scientist, not a murderer," she'd explained. "But I'm also not above making them very, very uncomfortable." Marcus had taken a more direct approach. "I've been analyzing their defensive positions. They're designed to repel attacks from other advanced species. They're completely unprepared for primitives with pointy sticks." Lisa had been the most creative. "I've reprogrammed their entire defensive network. Their own systems are now working against them. It's like turning their house into a haunted house, except the ghosts are really, really angry." The attack began with what Jake liked to call technological terrorism. Every piece of advanced equipment the aliens had deployed suddenly began malfunctioning in creative and psychologically disturbing ways. Their communication systems started playing human music at maximum volume. Their environmental controls began cycling through every possible temperature and humidity setting. Their lights flickered in patterns that spelled out rude messages in several Earth languages. "What is happening?" Vextal screamed over the sound of death metal blaring from every speaker on the ship. "The humans have weaponized our own technology against us," Gruel reported, shouting to be heard over the chaos. "They're using psychological warfare." "Psychological warfare?" "They're trying to drive us insane, sir. And it's working." That's when the real attack began. Marcus led the assault through the ship's ventilation system, because centuries of action movies had taught humans that air ducts were the universal weakness of every advanced facility ever built. Jake came through the main airlock, because sometimes the direct approach was the best approach, especially when you'd already disabled all the security systems. Dr. Watson entered through the emergency exits, because she'd studied the ship's design and knew exactly where the structural weak points were. Lisa didn't enter the ship at all. She simply took control of it remotely, because why break into a system when you could just own it completely? The three aliens found themselves trapped in their own command center, surrounded by technology that was no longer under their control, and facing four humans who had just demonstrated that evolution's greatest predator was also its most creative problem solver. "So," Jake said, settling into the commander's chair like he owned it, "let's talk about your hunting operation." Vextal raised his energy weapon, but it wouldn't fire. Lisa had disabled all the ship's weapons systems. "You cannot hope to understand the complexity of our technology," he said, though his voice lacked its earlier conviction. "Actually," Lisa said, holding up a device that looked suspiciously like a Keth-Nari command interface, "your technology is pretty straightforward once you figure out the basic principles. It's like a more advanced version of our own systems, but with some interesting vulnerabilities." Dr. Watson was examining Gruel with the detached interest of a scientist studying a particularly fascinating specimen. "Your species' biology is remarkable. You've evolved to be perfect predators, but you've never developed the paranoia that comes from being prey. You trust your senses, your equipment, your superiority. That's a fatal weakness when facing a species that's been fighting for survival since before we invented fire." Marcus was systematically examining the alien weapons and equipment. "Your gear is impressive, but it's designed for hunting animals, not fighting wars. There's a difference." "What difference?" Gruel asked. "Animals run away. Soldiers adapt." Jake stood up and walked to the ship's main display, which now showed a tactical overview of the island. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to contact your homeworld and explain that Earth is off limits. You're going to tell them that humans are not prey. And if we refuse?" Jake's smile was the kind of expression that had made saber-toothed tigers extinct. "Then you're going to discover why every other species on our planet is either domesticated or endangered." Dr. Watson added, "From a biological standpoint, your species has never faced evolutionary pressure from intelligent predators. You've been apex predators for so long that you've forgotten what it's like to be hunted." "But we're about to give you a refresher course," Marcus said, his voice carrying the calm authority of someone who'd perfected the art of controlled violence. Lisa held up her modified control device. "I've already accessed your ship's long-range communications. Would you like to make that call now? Or would you prefer to see what happens when humans get really creative with alien technology?" The ship's lights dimmed and brightened in a pattern that somehow managed to be both hypnotic and threatening. Vextal looked at his companions, then at the four humans who had systematically dismantled everything he'd believed about his species' superiority. "You don't understand," he said desperately. "We are the apex predators of the galaxy. We have hunted species across 12 star systems." "Yeah," Jake said, "but you've never hunted a species that hunts back." He activated the ship's communication system. "Now make the call." The message that went out to the Keth Nari homeworld was brief, direct, and absolutely terrifying to every species that received it. Jake sat in the commander's chair, looking remarkably comfortable for someone who had just committed an act of interstellar warfare. Behind him, the three captured aliens stood like chastened children, their earlier arrogance replaced by something that looked suspiciously like respect. "Greetings, Keth Nari High Command," Jake began, his voice carrying the calm authority of someone who'd just redefined the term apex predator. "This is Jake Martinez, representing the human species of Earth, third planet in the Sol system." He paused, letting that sink in. "Your hunting expedition has been educational. We've learned a great deal about your species, your technology, and your methods. In return, we've provided your hunters with a comprehensive lesson in what it means to be prey." Dr. Watson stepped into view, holding a data pad containing her analysis of Keth Nari biology. "From a scientific perspective, your species represents a fascinating example of evolutionary overspecialization. You've become so perfectly adapted to hunting lesser species that you've lost the ability to recognize a true predator." Marcus appeared next, casually cleaning a weapon that looked suspiciously like it had been cobbled together from alien technology and human ingenuity. "From a tactical perspective, your operations show a fundamental misunderstanding of warfare. You've been hunting animals for so long that you've forgotten how to fight soldiers." Lisa was the last to join the group, and she was carrying what appeared to be a complete technical manual for Keth Nari technology. "From an engineering perspective, your technology is impressive but poorly secured. It took me about 6 hours to reverse engineer your entire technological base." Jake leaned forward, his expression shifting from casual conversation to something considerably more serious. "Now, here's what's going to happen. Earth is officially off limits to your species, permanently. No hunting, no research, no tourism, nothing. You've had your chance to meet us as equals and you chose to treat us as prey. That was a mistake." He stood up, and the camera followed him as he walked to the ship's main display, which now showed a tactical analysis of every piece of Keth Nari technology they'd encountered. "You see, you made one critical error in your assessment of human capabilities. You assumed that because we hadn't achieved interstellar travel, we were primitives. But the thing is, we've been fighting each other for our entire evolutionary history. We've had to develop warfare into an art form just to survive on our own planet." Dr. Watson continued the explanation. "Humans evolved in an environment where everything was trying to kill us. We developed intelligence, cooperation, and technological innovation not as luxury items, but as survival tools. We became apex predators not because we were the strongest or fastest, but because we were the most adaptable." Marcus added, "Every human military force in history has faced the same challenge: how to defeat an enemy with superior technology or numbers. We've gotten very, very good at solving that problem." Lisa held up her technical manual. "Your technology is advanced, but it's not magic. Give us a few hours with any piece of equipment, and we'll either figure out how to use it, how to break it, or how to make it work better than you can." Jake returned to the commander's chair. "So here's your new reality, Keth Nari. You've just encountered a species that doesn't run when you hunt it. We fight back. We adapt. We learn. And we remember." He leaned back, looking remarkably comfortable for someone who was essentially declaring war on an interstellar civilization. "Oh, and one more thing. We're keeping your ship. Consider it a hunting trophy." The transmission ended. Within hours, the message had been intercepted and analyzed by every major species in the galaxy. The response was unanimous. Earth was immediately classified as a restricted world, and humans were added to the galactic database with a single simple designation: the apex predators. Do not engage. The Keth Nari hunting operation was officially disbanded. The 3 captured aliens were returned to their homeworld with a message that became legendary throughout the galaxy: next time you want to hunt the most dangerous game, remember that sometimes the most dangerous game hunts back. Jake and his team returned to Earth, but they kept the alien technology. Not for conquest or domination, but for the same reason humans had always kept trophies from their hunts, to remember what they'd learned about themselves. As Jake later told the debriefing committee, we didn't set out to become the galaxy's apex predators. We just reminded everyone that we already were. The galaxy learned an important lesson that day. When you hunt humans for sport, you don't become the hunter. You become the sport. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, every species that had ever considered Earth as a potential hunting ground quietly removed it from their target lists. After all, why hunt something that might hunt you back?